Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. We've heard this morning some fantastic stories about growing unions. And I want to first say congratulations to all the workers, the unions, the uni staff, and all of you in this room that made those wins possible. Our plan for the coming 4 years is to multiply these stories so that many thousands of more workers are going to join unions. Now, in Nagasaki, we decided to break through with global companies to secure organizing rights for workers everywhere. Not only when it is the local practice for companies to recognize unions, but everywhere. Because nobody should have to be forced to earn a badge of courage in order to organize a union. Today, UNI is engaged at different levels with about 100 of these global companies. The names you see on the screen behind me, I'm not sure if you can see those in the back, but we have about 100 logos of global companies up here, and many of them are household names to most of you. We approach this employer work with great intensity. We're a responsible and credible partner, but where necessary, a very tough adversary. We expect more from our global agreements, and we structure our work with companies around this principle. There are more company-based global alliances now than ever before, which bring together unions across the globe with workers for the same employer. And altogether, this moves our employer relationships to a new global phase. And so I'm very proud to share some of these achievements and developments with you today. Let's start with our global agreements. There are now 53 global agreements with UNI, and we have signed 12 new agreements since Nagasaki. These new global agreements cover 7 sectors and touch every region. Some were negotiated at the regional level, and none of this would be possible without full alignment of our sectors and regions. The new agreements are Loomis, a cash and transit company and property services, 2 Latin American banks, Brazilian banks, Banco Itaú and Banco do Brasil, with wide influence across the Americas, and Felaban, a Latin American banking federation. Codere, the Spanish gaming company, our first agreement in gaming. In ICTS, we have Telenor, the Norwegian telecommunications giant, and Isitan of Indonesia. In commerce, 2 Japanese retailers. You've heard about them today, Takashimaya and Aeon, the largest employer in Japanese retail. In media, the Asia Broadcast Union and Eurosport. And finally, last but not least, the Euromed Postal Union, which brings together postal unions across Southern Europe and Northern Africa. So I want to ask you for a round of applause for all the hard work of you and your sectors to deliver these agreements. Now, we also have to renegotiate some of these agreements to clarify our expectations. And so, for example, in Kimberly-Clark, which is a US company, we changed the language in our global agreement because it seemed to give a green light to anti-union campaigns. And then we relied upon it to win union recognition in Colombia over the objection of local management. We also negotiated a new deal with Metro, which opened some doors for us in Pakistan. But as we all know, the real test is, do these agreements make a difference? And I think you heard earlier today the example of using the Carrefour agreement to organize a national union across 73 stores in Colombia. Just to be clear, this would not have been possible without our global union, our regional operation, the boots on the ground, the committed workers, and the global agreement. G4S is another agreement in active use. When they were confronted with wrongdoing in Colombia, G4S eventually, after a push from us, agreed to a joint investigation with UNI, and then to a local agreement to assure the right to organize is respected in the future. This sets an example, an important example for other employers in the country, not the least of which is Prosegur. Beyond organizing, UNI has intervened to help unions negotiate Jews checkoff in India, Ghana, and Kenya, for example, a key element to build sustainable unions in those countries. With H&M, well, I think it's fair to say the U.S. is as hard a place as anywhere to organize, but we have negotiated a neutrality agreement, which means there is now a union in every H&M store across Manhattan. At France Telecom, just weeks ago, we signed a breakthrough health and safety agreement to apply to its Orange employees across Africa. So these agreements do support progress. But even without them, we are holding the global companies accountable and organizing workers. For example, we don't have an agreement with IKEA, but our alliance sprang into action and put a spotlight on their problems in Turkey, and the company was forced to face up to the realities of its anti-union managers. And we now have a successful campaign there. At UniCredit, the company is a little unsure about signing a global agreement, but our Italian affiliates are holding their feet to the fire on organizing rights in Romania. TeliaSonera, where I believe a global agreement is in our near future, Uni is supporting campaigns in Georgia and Moldova and has worked with the company to resolve some tough issues in these countries. Smurfit Kappa, another graphical example. Uni Graphical is organizing in 3 plants in Poland. We don't have a global agreement with that company, but this work carries on at a strong pace unseen recently in this industry. Now, I want to talk a little bit about DHL, which is one of the world's largest employers, 1/3 owned by the German government, and it should be a voice for collective progress. But instead, we found that this local practice philosophy was taking root, which means that in Turkey, they dismissed more than 30 workers for supporting a union. Together with our sister global union, the ITF, we ran a long campaign to win respect from this company. We helped the union in Turkey win to grow a union, to win a union. And DHL is now required by the German government to meet with Uni and the ITF every 3 months. It's not a global agreement, and we are not satisfied with the progress that we see, but we are in the game with DHL. They cannot ignore us. And we are going to continue to grow unions across the DHL workforce. Yeah? And finally, at Barclays Bank, we've got organizing now across Western and Southern Africa among Barclays employees, a big priority for uni finance unions in Africa. And we're in regular, although often unsatisfying, dialogue with this company, which will improve and escalate in the future. But even where we do have agreements, we do have some fights. And I'll give you one example, which is Inditex is a leader among companies in many ways relating to its supply chain. We have a very good relationship with them in the Bangladesh Accord, among other things. But it has fallen prey to the claim that it should not now allow organizing in the US because the time is not right. Well, this is unacceptable, and we are fighting back. There are many other companies where we expect to see progress in the coming period, and you can see some of their names on the screen. First, just some of them. Can't read out all of those. I don't want to bore you to death with a long list, but we've got a lot of work on our hands in the coming period. And we expect a lot of success. We've worked with all of our regions to bring this company work alive, but I want to single out the MENA region for special attention because all of us were so inspired by the role of our Tunisian brothers and sisters in the Arab Spring. We're going to hear more about their fight for democracy tomorrow, but this sweeping change has also presented an opportunity to build union strength. So UNI has been working in every sector in MENA and in Tunisia in particular to deepen union structures and networks. Several organizing campaigns, including call centers, are in the works. I'd also like to mention our organizing forums, which have taken place in every region and many sectors to bring together organizers so that we can learn from one another and sharpen our skills. Our organizers have found this to be an invaluable opportunity to improve their game when we're all up against the same tactics, more or less, when we're trying to organize. None of this would be possible without our organizing fund, which together with our funding from other donors, gives us more resources to implement both active campaigns and our program on the ground. A substantial majority of our uni affiliates pay into this fund, and we thank you for this. So we can be very proud of our progress. Work with employers is now a focus for all uni sectors. Organizing is happening in every sector and region. But let's not sugarcoat it. We face a global tsunami of union busting, where union avoidance has become a special product exported from the US to far corners of the world. Related to this, there's a global campaign against global agreements organized by the pro-corporate right wing and their lawyers, which starts from the premise that anything that makes it any easier to create a union is bad. Companies often ask us, why do we need to sign a global agreement? Why isn't our CSR policy enough? It covers international standards. CSR is a $5 billion per year industry which has overseen the failure of global standards to protect workers on a massive scale. When a company says that its CSR policy requires respect for local practices, it sounds okay, but they do not mean tea instead of coffee. These words are code for whatever form of miserable treatment local authorities will tolerate. Workers don't need window dressing. They need credible industrial relations with real partners at the national and global level. They need enforceable global agreements with rules which guarantee rights. We operate now in a world which increasingly recognizes the responsibility of companies to respect human rights as a policy matter at the highest level. The guiding principles for business and human rights were adopted since our last Congress, and we now have new and improved OECD guidelines. UNI is active with this kind of work. We use the guidelines, we use the principles, but there is a growing trend to see the human rights of workers, to organize, to bargain, as holding a second-tier status to other less controversial workers, less controversial rights and issues. Or also to see that worker rights are not human rights at all. We don't agree with this. We fight this battle with investors in particular, many of whom proclaim that they respect human rights, but they would like to just ignore or set aside the rights of workers because those are different. UNI is committed to engage in active campaigns to remind the world that dignity for workers must be the foundation of our humanity. Clap and I'll take a drink. We are also front and center in defending the core labor standards from attacks. We specifically convened a special panel at the ILO to advocate that free speech does not mean that companies have free license to badger workers against unions. Now, next at the Congress, you are going to hear from 3 campaigns which involve our toughest employers, Walmart, Prosegur, and Deutsche Telekom T-Mobile. These are the employers on the extreme end of the spectrum. Our message to them, we will not accept union busting as a business model. We will mobilize workers, communities. We will take our message to the public, your clients, your investors, and your governments. UNI is on the cutting edge of this work. We are not satisfied when national answers to global questions of rights and dignity do not measure up. We are, all of us together, part of a changing tide in the history of our labor movement because we are building global union power, and together we will make a better world. Thank you. Aman La!